same fate. I'm gonna knock out Jake Paul.
Tyson just crumbles Jake Paul by changing up the fight rules so brutally that Jake might sign his will before stepping into the ring. Originally, the fight got postponed to November 15th because Tyson had some health concerns. But, of course, our favorite troublemaker Jake decided to outright cancel it and announced he'd be fighting Mike Perry instead. But Tyson wasn't about to let that slide. He laid it out for Jake, saying, "Cancel the fight, and you owe a fine of $350 million, plus all the promotion and ticket fees." Faced with that massive bill, Jake quickly did a U-turn and agreed to fight. But now, the game is in Tyson's hands, and Jake is up against some seriously tough new rules. Honestly, this whole mess wouldn't have happened if Jake had just used his brain for a second instead of immediately canceling the fight. He was the one who shook things up by suddenly pulling the plug on his much-hyped match with Mike Tyson. Jake had his eyes set on a new opponent, Mike Perry, for a showdown on July 20th.
Yeah, the news is true, folks. I, Jake Paul, will be fighting Mike Perry, Tampa, Florida, July 20th.
Maybe he thought Perry was an easier target and a way to stay in the spotlight without breaking a sweat. But then came the plot twist no one saw coming. Tyson was planning to charge Jake a jaw-dropping $350 million for all the financial losses from the cancellation. Tyson wasn't about to let him off the hook that easily. Nope, he had a plan to teach Jake a brutal lesson. Tyson decided to shake things up by changing the fight rules, making them way tougher for Jake. It was like Tyson saying, "You want to play games? Fine, let's play by my rules." And don't you think it all happened after that fine announcement of $350 million? Well, that seriously had Jake sweating bullets. It wasn't some random number Tyson pulled out of thin air. It covered every penny of the marketing and promotional efforts that went into hyping the fight. Promoting a fight between two big names like Tyson and Paul involves a ton of money. TV deals, advertising, sponsorships, venue bookings, you name it. Jake suddenly found himself on the hook for all these costs, which he had totally underestimated or ignored in his grand plans to switch opponents. Like, see how confident this man was back then.
Fight.
Yeah, the biggest ever.
Ever. It's on pace to be the biggest fight ever.
Yes, and we're involved.
We're involved, right?
We're involved. All those big shots, all the biggest athletes in the world, this is the biggest ever.
November 28th. Let's
Lit. Hey, we lit here. We lit at the Tyson Ranch.
Adding insult to injury, Jake had seriously misjudged Tyson's health. Rumors were swirling that Tyson was too ill to fight, giving Jake a false sense of security. He probably thought Tyson would be too weak or distracted to enforce any real consequences. But Tyson, ever the fighter, quickly squashed those rumors. Despite his health challenges, Tyson still got the heart of a lion and the mind of a seasoned champion. His determination to hold Jake accountable showed his tenacity and served as a stern warning to anyone thinking they could mess with Iron Mike.
Devastating news. I'm heartbroken, speechless, gutted. We've been working so hard over here, everyone in this camp, and I just feel bad for everyone involved in this.
As Jake tried to backtrack on his cancellation, he found himself in a full-blown panic. This wasn't just about saving face, it was about saving a fortune. His tearful podcast confession was a desperate attempt to make things right, but Tyson had already set his plan in motion. By changing the fight rules, Tyson wasn't just looking to get even. He was making a statement. These new rules weren't just minor tweaks. They were game changers designed to push Jake to his limits. And let me tell you, Mike Tyson's move to change the fight rules against Jake Paul wasn't just to scare him. It was a well-calculated strategy that turned what looked like an uphill battle for the aging legend into a cleverly rigged arena designed to exploit every one of Jake Paul's weaknesses. Initially, Jake was sitting pretty with the old rules, confident that the fight would go his way. With cozy 3-minute rounds and 1-minute rest periods, Jake felt he had the stamina, agility, and tricks to handle Tyson. He was living in a dream world, thinking he had nothing to worry about. But Tyson, with his vast experience and tactical genius, saw right through Jake's bravado. He knew that to teach Jake a lesson and reclaim his own formidable reputation, he needed to flip the script completely. And so began the strategic overhaul of the fight rules, meticulously designed to favor Tyson's strengths and expose Jake's vulnerabilities. First up, Tyson extended the round duration from 3 minutes to 4 minutes. Now this might seem like a small tweak, but the implications were huge. By adding that extra minute to each round, Tyson ensured the fight would be a true test of stamina, one where Jake's youthful energy might just run out of steam under prolonged pressure. He slashed the rest periods between rounds from a comfortable 1 minute to a measly 30 seconds. This drastic cut in recovery time meant fighters had to be in peak physical condition to maintain their performance. Tyson, with his legendary training regime, could handle shorter breaks no problem. Jake, on the other hand, would be left scrambling to catch his breath, a challenge he definitely hadn't planned for. Another game-changing rule Tyson introduced was the removal of headgear. Originally, the fight was set to follow a standard safety protocol that included headgear, a measure designed to reduce the risk of serious injuries. Headgear offers a level of protection that cushions blows, helps prevent cuts, and generally makes the fight somewhat safer for the fighters. But Tyson, ever the tactician, decided to throw that plan out the window. Moving on to the continuous knockdown rule, Tyson's decision here is yet another stroke of genius. Traditionally, a knockdown in boxing can often lead to a break in the action, with the possibility of the fight being stopped if a fighter is knocked down multiple times. Technical victory. However, Tyson's new rule dictates that the fight continues despite multiple knockdowns until one fighter is completely out of the round. This relentless approach removes any chance of an easy win by knockout and ensures that the fight is a true test of endurance and resilience. For Jake Paul, the continuous knockdown rule presents a daunting challenge. Every time he gets knocked down, he must get back up and keep fighting, knowing that the round will only end when the time runs out or he's completely out. Jake must prepare not only physically, but also mentally to withstand the barrage of attacks from Tyson. Then Tyson upped the ante by extending the fight duration from 8 rounds to 12 rounds. This was a throwback to the classic era of boxing, where champions were made and broken over long, grueling matches. Tyson, having fought numerous 12-round bouts, was well-versed in the strategy and stamina required for such length. Jake, used to shorter matches, now faced a marathon of endurance, pushing him into uncharted territory both physically and mentally. With the new rule, referees were instructed to break up cliches quickly, forcing the fighters to maintain a high pace and continuous action. This change ensured there'd be no easy way out for Jake, no chance to rest while in a clinch. Tyson's relentless style, characterized by constant aggression, would thrive under these conditions. One of the more cunning changes was the introduction of point deductions for excessive backpedaling. Jake's onslaught. With the threat of losing points for backpedaling, Jake had to stand his ground and engage, playing right into Tyson's aggressive strategy. This rule ensured the fight remained intense and action-packed, much to Tyson's advantage. Open scoring was another brilliant addition. By announcing the scores to the fighters after every round, Tyson introduced a psychological element to the fight. Jake could no longer rely on the mystery of the judges' scores. He'd know exactly where he stood round by round. This transparency could mess with his head, especially if he found himself trailing Tyson on the scorecards. The pressure of knowing he was behind could lead to mistakes and desperation, which Tyson could exploit. A fighter who doesn't pass the evaluation could face fines, point deductions, or even disqualification from the fight. This creates immense pressure to be in top physical shape, as any shortcoming could jeopardize not only the fight but also their career and reputation. For Jake Paul, this means ramping up his training regime to unprecedented levels to avoid these penalties. Jake's potential struggles to meet the conditioning standards are multifaceted. First, there's the physical aspect. Training to meet these rigorous standards means pushing his body harder than ever before. This involves not just traditional boxing training, but also specialized workouts aimed at improving cardiovascular endurance, muscle strength, and overall agility. The intensity of these workouts can lead to fatigue and injury if not managed properly, adding another layer of risk to Jake's preparation. The fight is being organized under a unique agreement that gives Tyson significant control over the bout's terms after Jake's mess of cancellation. This deal probably stems from negotiations that recognize Tyson's star power and the public's burning desire to see him fight again. By agreeing to these terms, both parties ensure that the fight meets the highest standards of competition and entertainment, which includes the ability to implement specific rules that ramp up the intensity and fairness of the fight. But hey, what's your take on all this? Which of Tyson's new rules do you find the most exciting or brutal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's get the conversation rolling.